With a Bitcoin ETF, you don't need to buy or store actual Bitcoins yourself. Instead, you can 11 different Bitcoin ETFs were approved by the SEC on Wednesday, January 10th, making it a landmark event for crypto and stock enthusiasts alike. You'll want to keep watching if you are interested in understanding what a Bitcoin Spot ETF is, what it means to stock investors, and how to trade or access exposure to this new asset class. And before we can think about the effects this new product will have on the market and investors, let's do a quick review of what a Bitcoin ETF is. So the ETF part, an exchange traded fund, is a type of investment fund that pools assets, stocks, bonds, and in this case, Bitcoin together. And it's an asset that is then traded on stock exchange, making it very similar to a stock. The idea being giving investors the chance to gain exposure to certain assets without actually holding them on their own books. Now, Bitcoin is a form of digital cryptocurrency and is thought of as the top dog or the king of the jungle when it comes to cryptos. With a Bitcoin ETF, you don't need to buy or store actual Bitcoins yourself. Instead, you can buy shares of an ETF on a stock exchange, and these shares represent ownership of Bitcoin held by the underlying ETF. But just to clarify one thing there, the ETF doesn't actually hold the Bitcoin on their books. Instead, a third-party custodial service does. And this custodian is trusted and responsible for storing and safeguarding the actual Bitcoins that back or underlie the ETF that is being traded. So as people start to buy and sell Bitcoin ETFs, the price will fluctuate just like a share price of a stock. And as the buying goes up, the price should increase as well. Conversely, if the selling starts to happen, the share price of the ETF will decrease along with it. These ETFs being approved also provides regulatory insight by the SEC to ensure transparency and fairness for all investors, with some additional protection being offered by the regulatory bodies. I say protection loosely there because if you are a crypto enthusiast, you understand that if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. So there's some back and forth going on behind the scenes right now with the term investor protection. So basically, a Bitcoin ETF is a really simple way for investors to gain exposure to the price movement of the Bitcoin without actually owning any of the cryptocurrency. So if you don't want to own Bitcoin, but you want to accelerate your portfolio based on the price appreciation of Bitcoin, you could do so by owning a Bitcoin ETF. So what does this mean to stock investors then? Well, it presents an opportunity for you to diversify your portfolio into the Bitcoin ETF. It's a new asset class, potentially providing benefits to institutions, hedge funds, even the everyday mom and pop trader like yourself. This regulatory approval from the SEC could also lend itself well to the overall market sentiment around Bitcoin and furthermore cryptocurrencies as a whole, and give it a positive connotation or being seen as less volatile than it was in the past. Meaning this approval paves the way for even more investments into the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space. You will also start to see a capital allocation from big Wall Street hedge funds. What has to happen, they have to have certain ratios or exposure in their portfolios to different asset classes. It's programmed. They have to have 1-2% on across the board on different assets. So whatever the fund that they're trying to produce, it has to have a certain exposure. So money will be flowing into the Bitcoin ETFs because they have to put it on their books. This could result in a stagnant or kind of flat stock market. And my prediction is that as the flow of funds go from regular assets like stocks, individual companies into a Bitcoin spot ETF, much of the stock market will kind of come to a bit of a standstill for a bit of time while this money kind of flows in from one asset and out into the Bitcoin ETFs. And I think people may be a bit surprised when they see the amount of capital flowing from your regular stock investments into these newly approved ETFs. We're talking millions and potentially billions of dollars here flowing very quickly from traditional assets into the new Bitcoin ETF products. I can't see this not having an effect on the stock market in terms of stock valuations and prices, not directly influencing things, but just as that money allocation moves around, you're going to see an effect on the market, in my opinion. So how can you now, as an investor, trade and access exposure to the Bitcoin Spot ETF on your own? Well, the first way to do it would be to go super old school. Pick up that phone. If you still have a landline with the cord, do that, or your cell phone. Call up your broker if that's your thing, and then ask them to buy you some shares of the new Bitcoin Spot ETF. Pick whatever 111 you want, get some exposure that way, get in your portfolio. For the majority of us, like yourself probably included, you can go through your normal brokerage that you do your trading on and just search one of those 11 tickers, whichever one you want to actually go through and buy and put in your account. I've been slowly adding these tickers to a new watch list inside my Interactive Brokers app. And as you can see, there's a few there that have been added. There's still a few that I haven't been able to find yet. So they're still kind of early to the game. Once they are approved, though, it takes 1 or 2 days to get on the market. They will be publicly traded in no time. Add them to your watch list, trade them at your leisure. The big takeaway here, though, is that you have to understand what this new product is. Now that it is approved for trading, think about your own risk tolerance and your trading. Maybe you prefer owning Bitcoin itself, having your own keys to your own crypto, or you just want to mirror the price action of Bitcoin, which was why these ETFs were invented and kind of put in the market. Consider your whole portfolio as a whole. Do you have crypto somewhere else? Do you have Bitcoin somewhere else? If you do, you may not need exposure to this Bitcoin ETF. If you don't and you want to get in, this may be the way to do it for you because it's simple, it's easy, and now it's applicable and available to all recreational traders. As you're making your decision to invest, to not invest in the Bitcoin ETF, I would love to know your rationale and reasoning. So drop me a comment and let me know why or why not for your own investment account. And I'll be joining you on the watching party on how this new chapter in crypto plays out.